someone who is in the IAS, in the services, and someone who trains people who prepare for the IAS, right? So Saloni is an educationist, economist, and interviewer. She has spent a lot of years training people to get into the services. And I don't know how many of you have heard about the story of Ira Singhal. Selected in UPSC in 2010, selected in UPSC in 2011, selected in 2013, but not allocated IAS because of her 62% locomotor disability. But she did not give up. She challenged the decision in court against the commission. She did not give up. She went and wrote the UPSC once more in 2014. And in 2014, she didn't just win the case, she cracked UPSC in 2014 with All India rank 1. Ira Singhal, it's an honor to have you with us. A lot of people spend years and years preparing for the IAS. And I remember that when we all grew up, our parents gave us just, in Bangalore you have 4 options because you're engineer, doctor, and then they would tell us, okay, if you're really smart, they're like, you should be an IAS officer, you should be an IAS officer, right? Or the zenith would be, you have to be a pilot, right?
Okay.
So it's such a privilege to have you with us.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the struggles. It wouldn't have been easy for you to give the UPSC so many times,
Right.
crack it, and still not be able to be right there, which you achieved with rank 1.
So I think just to give you a perspective of where I started from, I'm an engineer, like almost half of India. And then I'm an MBA, and I worked in the corporate sector as a strategy manager with Cadbury. And I think you can't find a sweeter job than that. So brilliant company, brilliant work. But I always had this thing about doing something for the nation, working for the society, working for the country. And so I thought, let me quit and give civil services. And like you mentioned, I was rejected. So when you give the exam, the Union Public Service Commission is the one that takes the exam and gives you a rank. Department of Personnel and Training is the one who allocates you a service.
Correct.
Basis the rank that you get. So basis my rank, I was supposed to get into the IRS, but not just the IRS, all the other services also rejected me, saying that we will not take someone with this disability. And if you're a person with disability, you kind of get used to being rejected and having to try again and again for everything. The world does not want to give you a chance. And that's true for people without disabilities also. But imagine adding on a disability on top of that and being a woman. So what we call intersectionality these days. So nobody wants to give you a chance, right? And that is something that you learn right from childhood. You learn right from probably your first school admission. That you will have to make that extra effort. You will have to stand up and fight for yourself. That extra step is always needed. So somewhere, because I've always done it, I've had to do it. It wasn't such a, new thing in that perspective. But yes, of course, you don't expect that when you give an exam like this, and you don't expect it from the government. Which is where the whole thing was. And to be honest, I think if it was just about me, I probably wouldn't have filed the lawsuit. What happened was that when this happened to me, I didn't even know that this had happened. I didn't even know that I had been rejected basis my disability. I started getting phone calls from other candidates saying, do you know what happened to you? And if you don't know something has happened to you, you start finding out what happened, right? Imagine getting random phone calls saying, what happened to you? And you're like, wait, something happened to me? So then I started finding out, and that's when I figured out that this had happened. And I was, not just me, a lot of other people had been rejected. And I realized that I came from a financially well-to-do background, because remember, in India, disability is also a function of poverty in most cases, right? So I decided to fight it, and I thought maybe this is what life wants me to do. I came in to make a difference. I came in to serve. I came in to make other people's lives better. So maybe this is how I'm supposed to do it. So that's how I filed the lawsuit. And the strange thing is that it wasn't just the first attempt that this happened to me. It happened to me 3 separate times. Every single attempt, I was getting selected by UPSC and then rejected by all the services except for the IAS, which was the only service which was going to take a person with my disability. I was getting rejected basis my disability.
How would they inform you about the rejection? Would it be
So they send you a letter saying, sorry, even though you are selected, we cannot give you a service. We will not, because none of us wants to have someone like you in our job. And the crazy part is, there are two criteria for people with disabilities. One is what is your ability and what is your disability. So for me, in the ability criteria, I matched almost all the services. But for the disability criteria, I was allowed only in one. So there was no connection between what is your disability and what are your abilities and what is the job requirement, right? So that was another strange thing. And that I really felt was unfair. And that's why I went to court. And it took 3 years. And the judgment came. And I'd say this, but people think this is a joke. But I honestly say this, and I think Saloni will also agree with me. If you want to destroy your enemies, and do it subtly, like not letting them know. And I've said this everywhere and it becomes very controversial and people don't understand it, but seriously, if you really want to destroy someone's life, tell them they're very, very smart and they should give civil services exam. Because what you're doing to someone is in their 20s, you're locking them inside a single room. And they are struggling to do the same thing again and again and again over years, in their most productive years. They're locked inside a room. It's a financial burden, it's a physical burden, in fact I call it torture. It's a financial torture, it's an emotional torture, it's a mental torture, it's a physical torture, because imagine sitting over the same books for 20 hours a day and you break your back, you get, almost everybody gets all those back pains and you don't eat well, so you gain weight. Your mental, this thing, because all your school classmates and your college classmates have actually gone ahead in life and they are doing so well and they're earning so much, but you're stuck inside that one room doing the same thing again and again. So it's actually a self-inflicted torture, which you do to yourself. So one doesn't want to give this exam that many times, right?
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And before I go to Saloni, so when you got the result in 2014,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
did you expect being in the top 3, let alone being All India rank 1?
At that point, I just want this to get over. Because like I said, you really don't want to be doing it at that point. And I'd done it for so many years. So I did think I had done really well and I should be in the top 10 if life was fair. See, that's another caveat, right? And as a person with disability, you constantly have to, start thinking like that if life is fair, then this should happen. But because life is not mostly fair, or you feel that it's not, so you don't know what happens. But yeah, so I did think I had done well enough to be in the top 10, but nobody should be thinking they're going to be the best, because you really don't know how good others are, or.
Yeah.